Okay, so lying on your backs, just take a moment to take a few breaths. Feeling in this moment, is there a contrast with how you breathe when I suggest that you take a few breaths to how you were breathing a moment ago, preparing for the lesson? And notice where in your body do you feel the breath? Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your abdomen? Is there any sensation of the movement that breath creates in your body, in your lower abdomen, below your belly button, above your pubic bone? Is there any sensation of breath there? Dave made it back. And often when I say, do you feel the breath in your chest? Notice, is it different when I suggest, how do you feel the breathing or the movement from the breathing in your ribs? Does that have any different meaning to how you sense yourself if you feel your ribs versus your chest? Your ribs wrap around from the sternum to the backbone. Can you feel any movement as a result of the breathing in the side ribs, the back ribs into the floor? What about your shoulder blades? As you breathe in and out and your shoulder blades, right and left, make contact with the floor, is there any movement? Do they glide and slide at all? Your lungs fill with breath. That air creates movement in the ribs. Is there any sliding of the back ribs on the front side of the shoulder blades? What an interesting place to think about, the front side of the shoulder blades. And what about in your neck? Does the breath just stop at the top of the sternum? Or can you just feel any movement, any lengthening or shortening, expanding in your neck with each inhalation and exhalation? And then gently roll onto your right sides, please, with your left hand palm on top of your right hand and your knees bent at about 90-90. Yeah, so your knees are bent 90-90 and your hips are 90-90 to your trunk. Yeah, there you go, good. And just arms sort of kind of lengthened out in front so that your elbows are fairly straight, not locked straight, but lengthened. If you look out, you can see your palms extended out in front of you. Nice. And just feel how your left hand rests on your right hand. Feel the finger pads touching the palms. How much of your wrist or forearms is or is not touching, just depending on your shape. Some of you have elbows touching, others not. Notice the position of your head and neck. And then gently begin sliding your left hand out in front of you farther. So you're going to extend your left hand out and touch the floor beyond the fingertips of the right hand. Just a little bit, slide out and come back, and feel that movement. What happens in the shoulder blade, to lengthen your left arm out past the right fingertips. Feel the change in texture from feeling your right palm to feeling either the floor or the fabric beneath the fingertips of your left hand. And notice what moves, what part of your arm, your shoulder blade. Notice, is there any movement in your ribs? Is there any movement in your head or neck? And what stops the movement from easily going further? As you gently slide your left hand to your most effortless point of comfort, if you were going to push back through that, what would you be efforting? Where would you feel the strain? And don't do it. Just get to that point right on the edge. At this point, I would have to strain where? And for some of you, it might be your neck, it might be your jaw, it might be your chest or your shoulder. What do you feel happening with your breath? In your abdomen? With your pelvis? And just pause for a moment. And then this time, as you reach your left hand out past your right fingertips, intentionally let your head roll down towards the floor, and let your pelvis roll forward a little bit also. Let your whole body roll forward, but leading from the arm. So the body follows. You don't make your head roll right, you don't make your pelvis roll forward, but you let them follow the lead of the left arm coming forward. Check in, see if your jaw and face are relaxed. Your breathing. And it's really an unusual thing to feel your own hand, to feel your own arm. Often we go to practitioners, Feldenkrais practitioners or massage therapists, and most people have the experience of loving being touched. But how often do we immerse ourselves in the love of touching ourselves? Feeling your palm sliding on your other palm. Feeling your forearm touching if it is. And then a couple more times, sliding your left hand forward, intentionally turn your head to the left to look towards your left shoulder, just gently. So you're kind of going the opposite direction. And again, notice how you're breathing. Does this change the breathing pattern? Good. And then next time you bring your hand back to rest on the palm of your hand, just kind of keep bringing it back and back and back until you roll onto your backs again. And just notice the influence on your body. How does the left shoulder feel now compared to the right shoulder? The shoulder blades. Do you experience any changes in the movements being evoked by the inhalation and exhalation? The filling and emptying of your lungs. And some of you will feel differences clearly from the left and right side after having been on one side and having done movement with the left side, and others of you might not notice so many differences. And yet just asking the question and checking it out provides an opportunity to learn to focus your attention so that you're choosing what your mind attends to instead of the mind obsessively choosing where it leads you, habitually, I should say. And then again, roll onto your right sides, please. Same configuration, left palm resting on the right palm, left knee resting on the right knee. Hips and knees both bent at approximately 90 degrees so that you feel fairly stable. You don't feel like you're going to roll over. You're holding yourself up. Elbows reasonably straight. And begin exploring your way up your left arm. So rather than up your right arm. So rather than extending your left arm out past your fingertips, you're going to begin sliding it up so that your palm touches your wrist and your forearm. And do this in a way where, at least initially, you keep your left elbow reasonably straight. You don't have to put a lot of effort into locking it. But what needs to move? If your elbow remains fairly straight, where do you have to move to slide your left hand up your right forearm? What happens in your shoulder blade? The ribs, even the sternum. Does your head want to roll, or does it stay looking forward? What about your pelvis? Your knees? And what about how you experience this lesson? For some of you, so far this is a left-sided lesson. Your left side is moving and discovering certain things. What is your right side doing? Every time we engage mobility somewhere, we engage stability somewhere. So how does your right side provide stability to allow for mobility on the left side? And maybe you can even use this stability even more to allow the movement to be smoother, more effortless. And then just pause on your side for a moment. Now, just gently press your knees together, gently. And continue doing this movement with your left arm sliding back along your right arm. And see if that changes anything. So you're sort of locking in your knees and hopefully your pelvis. Don't let that knee slide at all. No knee sliding. Where else might you have to move? If your knees stay, basically your pelvis is staying midline. So what else has to move to create movement? Some of you might have the capacity to get more movement in your ribs. Some of you might just soften your arm and elbow a little more. Some of you might really find access in your shoulder blade, or how you use the right side. There can be kind of a stabilizing, almost the feeling of reaching with your right arm that helps actually roll the left side of your body backwards. And let your knees relax, let your pelvis relax, and continue the movement, sliding your hand. At a certain point, you'll want to bend your elbow. Just keep taking your hand backward and drawing your left shoulder back and back and back towards the floor behind you until eventually you find that your hand and your fingertips has reached all the way up to your right shoulder. And you just slide it back down, feeling how nice it is to be touched by somebody who cares most about you. Noticing your breathing, your face and jaw. And each time you go back a little farther. So that your palm comes to your shoulder, and eventually it might even come across your chest, across your sternum. What has to happen in your knees? Can you just allow your left knee to just lift upward without efforting? Now, if you have a history of low back pain or problems, this is where you're responsible for listening. Not listening later when you say, oh my gosh, I did too much, but listening right now, moving only in the range that is easy and effortless. Because we're reteaching the brain to feel that movement is comfortable, easy, graceful. We don't need to continue to reinforce to the brain that movement hurts. So call your own limits. Imagine what you can't do. Give yourself permission to rest on your back if you need to. This lesson is for you, not for me. And as I say over and over again, if the only thing you get out of Feldenkrais is how to listen and take care of yourself, that will be huge, huge. Next time you're sliding your arm back, drawing your shoulder towards the floor, when you get to that point where you're noticing a little more effort, just kind of give it up and roll all the way onto your back for a full rest. Whatever way is easiest to roll that way. And listen. Listen. Does how you rest on the floor feel different now? Are there more or less differences in how you experience your left and right sides? your breathing. Where does your brain go? Does it go to what's feeling full and expanded and soft? Or do you check in? Check in with that old pain. Those of you who know me know we call it the brain pain superhighway. It's well traveled to the point of ruts in the road and potholes. So we're excavating side roads, new ways to feel, to move, new places to take your attention. And again, please roll onto your left sides. Oh, did I say? Oh, I'm sorry, right side. I thought the first person I saw, I thought she was just taking care of herself. Y'all know it's not what I say, it's what I mean. Right sides. I always wonder about the people who might someday be listening to this. Hands in the same configuration, and just return to the experiment. And you can always start with sliding out a little and then coming back up your arm. Where does your attention first go? It's so easy as the movement becomes familiar to let ourselves do it mechanically. And I invite you to continue to come back into an experience of something, whether it's your shoulder, your breath, your pelvis, the sensation of your hand caressing your right arm. And continue growing the movement with your left hand coming across your chest until you get to a point where you begin bringing your left elbow backwards towards the floor, doing whatever it is you need to be most comfortable and safe and yet effortless and graceful with your lower body. How does it just take the lead and follow the movement that starts in your left hand, your left shoulder, shoulder blade? So you bring your hand across your chest. Begin to drop your shoulder towards the floor behind you, your elbow towards the floor behind you. Eventually, your hand being particularly aware of where your neighbor's face is. Allow your knees to open. If your pelvis wants to roll back with you, let your whole body roll back. Yeah, if you get to the point where your left elbow and left hand are on the floor, just finish by bringing your pelvis down, your knees up towards the ceiling. And then start with the fingertips. The fingertips curl a little bit towards the ceiling, as if someone's just pulling gently on your hand. You feel your elbow bend. Your hand comes towards your left shoulder, glides across your chest, over to your right shoulder, and slides you back down your right arm and onto your right side. While breathing, just keep exploring your way back, all the way onto your backs, all of it starting with the left hand, the left shoulder blade. And just as easily, just as effortlessly, following your left fingertips as they slide down across your chest, across your right arm, and just feeling how your whole body follows onto your right side. If rolling in bed in the middle of the night could be this luxurious. it was when we were kids. We wiggled and rolled all night long. Sometimes I think Feldenkrais is just sophisticated wiggling, or slow motion sophisticated wiggling. And next time you're on your back, just stay there. You can bring your arms down. Feel the left shoulder blade and the right shoulder blade. Is there anything about the inhalation and the exhalation now? Can you distinguish any movement, sliding or gliding, of the ribs across the front of the shoulder blade? How do you experience movement in your left ribs, the left side of your pelvis, the left side of your neck compared to the right side? Remembering that so far this is not just a left-sided lesson, right? The right side has been invaluable in providing the support and stability to you. And then find your way, this time for real, onto your left sides, please. And lying on your left sides, just experience the breath into the right lung, expanding the ribs on the right. Feel the sensation of the right hand and palm resting on the left hand and palm. Your fingertips. Again, some of you have forearms and elbows touching and some don't. So just feel that experience of the position that you easily land in. And then begin exploring the same movements. Just start with gently extending your fingertips past your left fingertips this time, and really staying with the sensation of what it's like for your right fingertips to feel the left hand and fingertips, and then either the floor or the fabric. What is that sensation? And then sliding back, and maybe this time sliding a little bit up your wrist, your forearm. Initially with an intention of keeping your elbow reasonably straight without a lot of effort. And just taking your time to grow the movement. This would be an easy unwinding movement at the end of the day if you just remember that it's not about rolling, it's not about getting onto your back, it's just about dropping into your experience, letting go of all the habitual muscular holding patterns of the day that take over when we're not conscious, and coming back into a truly embodied experience. At what point is it easy for your right arm to travel up your forearm and past your elbow towards your left shoulder? Where do you feel movement in your shoulder blade, in your ribs, in your pelvis, in your neck? How do you feel the difference between the movement on your right side and the support of your left side? How does your left side, your arm, your trunk, your legs, provide the support and stability needed to create an easy and effortless movement of the right hand sliding up the left arm, eventually across the chest? Eventually feeling the knees open, the right shoulder and elbow dropping back towards the floor and opening. Face and jaw relaxed. Inhalations and exhalations smooth and even. Can you feel how different segments of your ribs move? Your rib and trunk don't just roll back like a one-unit cage, but as your shoulder blade slides, your upper ribs begin to roll back. As you roll a little further, the middle ribs, the lower ribs, eventually the pelvis, the hip, and the knee. Can you feel all the many segments that are integrating into this movement, so that each time there's less and less effort, less and less resistance to push through, more and more allowing, until you just feel the rhythm of sliding and opening and closing. And what would be really nice if we can do this at this point without completely rolling over each other. So next time you're on your left side, just stay there. So we'll sort of create a bit of a rhythm here. And then when you're ready, okay, good. So everybody's on their left side. So we're going to begin the exploration of rolling over the top of each other. No, not really. Of rolling and opening and then continuing to roll to the right. So initially you're starting the roll with your right hand, right shoulder blade. And then when you're completely open on your back, you'll begin to curl your left fingertips and bend your left elbow until you roll onto your left side. And when you get onto your left side, just pause for a moment, because otherwise it will become a lesson of rolling onto the top of each other. So left side all the way to the right side. Keep going. She'll let you. All the way to the right side. And just pause when you're on your right side. Linger in that return. And then when you're ready, begin to slide your left hand up along your right hand, your forearm, up to your elbow, really feeling, slowing it down, feeling all the segments. Feeling the opening And then the closing. It's like a natural pulsation, opening and closing, inhalation and exhalation. Every living organism participates in this in one way or another. And one more time, rolling back onto your back, and eventually over to your right side. Letting your pelvis be free, your legs just going along for the ride, if you're able. It's one possibility. And then one last time, rolling and resting on your backs, please. So just lingering in the continued pulse of your breath, and being the director of your attention, feeling how the breath influences the chest, the sternum, your ribs, breath in your belly, your lower abdomen. And what about breath in your shoulder blades? The ribs gliding on the inside of the shoulder blades. For some of you, you may feel the lengthening and shortening of your spine with each inhalation and exhalation. And stay with the breath and let the pulsation, the rhythm, the softness of the breath be your guide, be your teacher as it leads you to roll onto your side, to gently come up to sitting and standing. Take some time just standing, feeling the lingering influence. Noticing what you notice, directing your attention to parts of your body. Spend a little time walking around, just feeling, being in the feeling, enjoying the feeling. And may it stay with you throughout the day and the week.